Today is Good Friday when we mark the suffering and death of Jesus Christ. Not only was Jesus sentenced to death on the cross, he was also compelled to carry his own cross to the top of the hill on his way to his place of execution. I want to reflect on an incident that happened on his way. And we find it in Luke chapter 23, verse 26. And as they led him away, they seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. Jesus was having difficulty carrying the cross because of its weight, but also because of his own physical condition. Just prior to this, he was beaten and tortured and bloodied. So he was having extreme difficulty carrying the cross. In fact, he probably would not have completed carrying the cross to the top of the hill were it not for Simon, who helped him carry that cross. Um, and this was Simon's encounter with Jesus. So I want to frame my reflections on encountering Jesus. What does it mean to encounter Jesus, or what happens when we encounter Jesus? Basing it from the account of Simon's encounter with Jesus. The first thing I notice is that Simon was forced to help Jesus. He was making a trek. Simon was from North Africa and was making a trek to Jerusalem to observe the festivities of the Passover. And perhaps he initially resisted in helping Jesus because the cross being an instrument of death, and for him to touch the cross, it would make him ceremonially unclean and thus unable to participate in the religious rituals that he was looking forward to participating in Jerusalem. But he was forced to do it by the Roman soldiers. Uh, it also personally reminds me of the times growing up when my parents forced me to go to church uh, because they thought it best for me. And even in those moments where I was forced to, I still was able to encounter Jesus. The next thing is that the encounter of Simon's encounter with Jesus was personal. In other words, Simon met Jesus personally. And that's what happens when we encounter Jesus. We simply don't encounter ideas or statements. We simply don't encounter philosophy or even theology. What we encounter is Jesus, his person, his being, face to face, much like what happened with Simon's encounter with Jesus. And oftentimes, the encounter that we have with Jesus happens in a moment of crisis, a moment of pain, or personal tragedy. That's what happened with Simon. He certainly wasn't expecting to be recruited to help Jesus, but it was a time. It was a time of uh, difficulty and horror, really, wherein he was thrusted into that pain that Jesus himself was experiencing. So our encounters can with Jesus sometimes can be in moments of life where it's the most trying. The other thing I wanted to reflect on is that for Simon to have helped Jesus in that way, where it was up close, it was personal, It was direct, wherein he um, felt himself the weight of the cross. He probably was also cut by the wood of the cross. Probably smelled his blood and sweat, seen his horrific condition. Um, and what I want to say with all that is that he must have, that must have been a situation that marked his thinking, or impacted him in a way that stirred his soul, that challenged him, that caused some, perhaps some personal turmoil in him. And that's what happens when we encounter Jesus. We have a spiritual stirring, sort of like a challenge that happens within us, where we are confronted with something that we have to make a response to it, or react to it in some way. Um, and then the last thing I wanted to share is that it's more like uh, what do they say? Like an epilogue to the story of Simon. In Mark's account of the story, it was interesting that there was a phrase that was added in that, in identifying Simon. And that phrase was that Simon was the father of Alexander and Rufus. Um, why did the writer include that? Well, Rufus was also identified in another part of the Bible uh, where Rufus was identified as a Christian. So, what I want to say about Simon is that this was an encounter with Jesus that has really impacted him, and impacted him so much that he believed Jesus. Uh, he trusted in him. He has seen um, how horrific the conditions that he himself um, endured, and how he was not deserving of it. And so he himself, at some point, became a Christian. And also, because of the impact that Jesus had with him, his life also became an impact for his children, who apparently also became Christians and believed in Jesus. And so there's a kind of a generational impact that happens, or that happened with Simon when he accepted Jesus and believed him in his life. And that's what happens when we encounter Jesus. We are challenged by it. It may not be in the best of circumstances, but what we do encounter is a personal Jesus, one who is so willing to meet with you face to face, in a spiritual way, of course, to challenge your thinking, to bless you with what he has done for you, and to invite you to believe in him. Something wonderful happened this Good Friday. Good doesn't even come close to describing what it was.